encourage people to shop in Gosport rather than elsewhere. We have a major carnival coming, first time in Gosport, one of 6 happening around the country, all externally funded, so it won't cost the Gosport Council taxpayer a penny. But that is going to be a superb event in mid-July. And linked with that as well, for anyone who's ever seen the giant puppets from Liverpool, when I say giant, they're pretty much the size of this room, we have 2 of those coming as well. They're going at no cost ourselves, one of which will be going around touring schools and youth groups as well. So some really, really exciting attractions coming in that way as well. On top of that, there's charitable events, small community events, like Porton Fest, like Friends of Leeson Park, Stanley Park events as well, which I hope are happening again. They will all be allowed free use of our land, as they're all under 500 people. Likewise, charitable events, including the Gospel Terrors, who gave us a bit of flack recently, but now love us. They also will have free use for their dog show, because they clearly do raise money for charities. There are commercial events as well, including the Gosport Marine Festival, and the Montserrat events. They organise a lot of events at Lee. We've had good discussions with them. They, of course, as I say, are commercial, but they have good events for Gosport as well. So an awful lot happening. In addition to that, there's the 100th anniversary of a particular event on the model boating lake, centenary event there, and we're talking with them next week as well about having some musical entertainment linked in with that, to encourage again people to stay here and spend money in Gosport. Finally, there is a big event planned in Stoke Road. Stoke Road traders particularly coming forward with that. We're going to work with them, help fund them, and at the same time help them organise it and really promote local shops and traders. So an awful lot happening. The only event, sadly, that seems to be cancelled is the Waterfront Festival, where the organiser, who's well known to all of us, has chosen to cancel this event. There's been a lot of misinformation put round on that.
Yeah, from you.
There's been a lot of information from Mr. Smith put round on Facebook, just to spell out the truth to those who, other than Mr. Smith, would like to know it. Mr. Smith was told last autumn that we bring in fees and charges.
Wrong, 8th of December. Carry on.
Can I carry on without interruptions?
No.
Yeah. Otherwise you have to be removed. You have to leave.
I'm sick to death of his lying, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Smith, who is well known to all of us, the truth of the matter is he was told last November about fees and charges.
Incorrect.
Incorrect.
Sorry,
I
don't know how to keep it down. Sorry.
But he's lying.
No, I'm not lying. He was told last autumn.
I'm going to release the tape, Mr. Chegwin, and you're going to sink. You lied, and I've got it on tape. Bye-bye. I've heard enough.
Goodbye, Mr. Smith. We all know Mr. Smith, and we know his history as well, and it's been detrimental against me. For those who are more interested in the event, other than Mr. Smith,
we've got actual proof.
He was told last autumn of the charges. He was invited by several friends to engage with the council. Which
No, he was not. No, he was not.
Speak to Clive Foster-Reid for one,
No,
which
he
chose
was
not to do. The fact is, he wasn't only asking for free use of land, he was also asking for free water and free electricity at council taxpayers' expense.
Incorrect.
And this is at a time when many people can't afford the electricity to heat their homes. Now, one of the reasons why I am up here and the Conservatives are down there is that there were a lot of accusations, particularly from me, towards a previous leader of the council doing deals with his friends and giving free use of land. I am not going to do the same as others have. This is an open, transparent and honest council now. We will support charities for free use, but commercial events should pay.
They raise money for charity.
The asked to pay was $1,400 a day. He actually uses the park, drops off the public for 8 days. He was offered 4 days free. That includes the bill we have to get out. Offered 4 days free. So he was asking, being asked to pay around £5,000.
One day free.
Not full.
£5,000 on an event with a substantially larger budget than that.
You gave us 1 day for free.
You get 4 days for free.
It's incorrect.
Check your listening from the public gallery.
Going forward, then. Yeah, well,
Keep going, guys.
Mr. Mayor, carry on with answering the question rather than diverging into other subjects, because there are other questions to be answered.
Yeah, certainly. To conclude on events for this summer, I've explained the reasons because there has been a lot of misinformation, and that is being put out wider. And some of the stuff today, like offensive videos about FU and so on, with him putting my name, just shows it's a vendetta. It's nothing to do with the event. I have 30 years of supporting events in this town, and you know that, Graham. Everyone knows it. I support every event, including the waterfront.
Just
I'm
show us something
outright
on Facebook.
the events we are organising,
Thank you.
and we are going to have a very good programme throughout the summer.
Thank you, Councillor Checkman. Councillor Hammond, have your supplementary?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Can we move on to the second question, please?
Yeah, the second question, very similar to the first, in the name of Councillor Burgess. It has been announced that the Gosport Waterfront Festival has been cancelled due to significant changes now being imposed by the Council under this administration. This festival has been very popular for many years and brings vital much needed revenue to Traders of Gosport. Could consideration be given to waive the charge this year to enable the festival to go ahead? I refer you to the answer I've already given.
Have you got a supplementary, Councillor Burgess?
Indeed I do, Mr Mayor. Are any other festivals in Gosport taking place on GBC land, not paying for the use of the land? Of course, I also mentioned that the leader, of course, has a competitive / conflicting interest as another festival organiser.
Misinformation, he cries. Well, you just heard Chegwin lie and make slanderous remarks about me to a full council and a very full public gallery. Doubling down on his vile lies and demeaning quotes in the Portsmouth News on the same day of the meeting, Wednesday 29th of July, 29th of March 2023. He has created a narrative in a bid to cover his tracks, i.e. using his position in the council to dictate what festivals are going to pay and who are not. This is, of course, bringing the code of conduct, or breaking the code of conduct in his case, and bringing the council into disrepute. Due to him being a festival organiser himself, he should have declared an interest, but he chose not to, because he thinks he is above the rules and the law. In his rant, he also stated that we are a commercial business, but in fact we are a legal CIC and non-for-profit. None of us get paid, and yes, we charge an entry fee. We have to raise enough money to cover the 60 grand cost of putting the event on. So where does he think this money is coming from when every year we start with a zero budget, which of course I told him in an audio which you've heard about, which will be released at a later date, but I don't want to prejudice by releasing it now any investigations that may or not be going on as we speak. And so obviously we need to protect ourselves from these lies and the misinformation that he is putting out personally. I mean, he's simply trying to justify his illegal actions and to try and divert the attention away from him, as always. It's typical Chegwin. He can cheat, lie, and he does it best so far from by saying I'm chucking my toys out of the pram, as he put it, in his bid to discredit me. And he also quoted this in the papers as well, as you can see, or you may have seen. We have simply told the truth, and that's the last thing a narcissistic type of behaviour wants to hear. When you things like that and you get caught out, he turns nasty, even more vindictive, acting like a typical narcissist. I'm not calling him a narcissist. I'm just saying that studying their behaviour that I did when I was a probation officer, he certainly does tick all the boxes, but I am not qualified to say he's actually a narcissist. But his behaviour is narcissistic. So let's dissect his Portsmouth News comments. We were made aware of the changes in the autumn. That is a blatant lie. The first we heard of the changes and the actual amount was the 20th of February 23. That's spring the following year in my book. Although during the phone conversation he did intimate that there would be charges, but that he and the chief executive have the powers to waive the fee. I actually asked him in that conversation, look, if you're going to charge us, we can't afford it. We start with a zero budget, and tell us now. Oh, I start with a minus 45,000 or something budget. Every time I pointed a point of view across, he come back as worse off than we were. He states in the paper the fees would have been 5k, maybe more, certainly not less. But we obviously weren't able to do a complete financial assessment. But in any case, and he knew this when I spoke to him last December, we had already done all our work, spent 7k in deposits on bands, etc., and infrastructure, and he knows all of this. And just 3 months out, after we'd done all the work with social media and tickets were selling like crazy, he decides to torpedo us. So for us, we look at it as a festival organizer for an event that goes on the following week locally. He's just torpedoed his competition and used the council to do it. This is a vile act, an absolutely despicable, spiteful. I don't know whether he thinks he's got a score to settle from something like 12, 15 years ago, but he's a sick individual in my view, that never lets anything go. He just loves destroying people. He always has done, and he will continue to do so unless, of course, at some point he is removed from office, because in my opinion and in many others, he is not fit to be a public servant. There was absolutely no way that we could have found another 1,000, let alone another 5 or more, and all these insinuations that have come out from his oppos, saying that, you know, I was invited in to discuss and I refused to do so. I mean, that is absolute rubbish. No email, no request from the officer that I deal with at the council, and she has not sent me an email, and I've not had to respond to one other than the one we received on the 20th of February, which I replied, yes, I'd like to appeal this. I then had to wait till the end of March before he bothered to answer it, therefore sinking us even more into the quagmire. And he's trying to justify it by saying that we're a commercial business when we are a registered CIC. Absolutely balderdash. And of course, someone's going to have to pay for our losses, and the defamatory remarks will be dealt with. Now, and I reiterate, this was a deliberate act of sabotage and wipe out his rival. No one else can see it other than this was vindictive. A non-for-profit CID that had put thousands of pounds, he's put thousands of pounds into debt, and using the council to do it. This underhanded, dishonest, and of course despicable act will not go unpunished. And to double down that I failed to communicate with the council, he's going to have to come up with some emails. He's going to have to come up with a lot, because he says a lot but can prove nothing. Absolutely prove nothing. Where I can prove everything I'm saying. I have backup, and I can prove him to be the liar that he is. And if he thinks I'm lying, then attempt to sue me, which he won't, of course. He'd just go online with his God knows how many pseudonyms supporting himself. But then he's got a history of that, so one shouldn't be surprised. And to state we could come to some conclusion or resolution, shall we say, is again out and out untruthful. It's just another little thing saying, well, you know, I've done everything right, you know, but Mr. Smith has decided to throw his toys out the pram and not work with us, or things like that. But just trying to make him out to be the victim, that he's done nothing wrong. Well, we'll see how that pans out, won't we? Right, so I hope I've gone some way to debunk the news story. And the thing is about that news story is they never contacted me for a rebuttal. They never contacted, which I thought was strange. They just cut and paste comments that were made on the social media, you know, from the team. But they never quoted me or asked for a quote, because I'd have told them there and then. Annika's shown them proof that he's actually lying, but they'll get that soon enough. But they did give us the last quote, which is fair enough. But they can't do anything about his lying. They've just got to print what he says, and I'm glad they did, because it's libelous. We appreciate that, because it just adds to our case going forward. So just quickly going back to the council meeting that you just saw earlier, all his quotes doubling down on, of course now it's slanderous because he's speaking it. He is going to produce the emails and requests that he alleges were sent to me. No, he's not, because they don't exist. That he alleges that they were sent and I ignored them. Well, they weren't sent, were they? Because they don't exist. But he loves it up there, although he was rattled, and when he was shouting out barefaced lies, you can hear me. I lost it. I mean, that behaviour was not good on my part, but I couldn't sit there listening to him lie in an open meeting about me. And of course that's when he realised that the conversation we had on the 8th of December was recorded, and then he kind of lost his composure after that, because he's thinking to himself, because I know how he works, what have I said on there? He said a lot, and he gave confidential information out about another member of the public, which he shouldn't have done to me, despite the fact I know that member of the public. He's broken GDRP or whatever that is, and of course I'm sure that will be looked into as well. So for all his bravado and swagger, he is going to lose in the long run, absolutely. Well, one of his favourite sayings was, "It's not what you know, it's what you can prove." And trust me, Mr. Chegwin, I can prove, and I know, and everybody else is going to know. He's a liar and a cheat, and dishonest to the book, I'm afraid. It's funny, after working with him for many years, he always told me, he said, never trust anyone, especially me. Now there's a statement to make, isn't it? But when you analyse it and you look back over the years, you can understand what he's saying, because he says, I don't have friends because I always upset them. In other words, what he's saying there, like narcissistic behaviour, is when your supply is of no use to him, he would discard you like you never existed, and it's violent discard as well. We can prove everything that we say on here. I don't make statements that could get me into trouble, which is why on the last video, you know, all the truth, absolute truth, and that's what will save us in the end. I mean, the festival's gone for this year, but we'll be back, don't you worry about that. Basically, this excuse for a man should not be in public office. He should be found guilty in a court of law and banned from being a councillor or standing for a local government ever again. Now the next part of this is that I want to cover an email that was sent to one of our volunteers by Councillor Julie Westbury, where in this email she makes serious allegations about me. One of the quote is that when the fairground play or operate at Walpole Park, there's a large sum of money that they pay. I'm not going to give the figure because that's confidential information, but there's a large sum of money that they pay. And she goes on to say, we believe that when the fairground attend Mr. Smith's festival, he gets the money, which means that I am personally pocketing cash, which is a vile accusation to make with absolutely no evidence, when our books and our bank account can prove that the money we get from the fun fair goes into the fun fair. Yes, we sell the concession to the fun fair, we sell concessions to the bar, we sell concessions for the hot food. How in the hell are we supposed to raise the money to pay for all this stuff, to get to our 55 or 60,000, whichever the acts are, each year? How are we supposed to do that with a zero budget to start with? I mean, he knows all this, they know all this, and she's going to come a cropper. It wouldn't surprise me in any case that all the information she wrote in the email was probably sent by Chegwin, which she just cut and paste. He said that I could have applied to the council for some funding. Well, we have actually. Vic was in the process of doing that, and if he bothered to contact Gosport Voluntary Action, they would have confirmed that, but he didn't. And then she says, charitable events are still being allowed free use of land, but commercial events should pay. Mr. Smith was advised of this several months ago, and he was also advised to engage with the council. Sadly, he chose not to do so. That is Chegwin's writing. It's lies, it's disingenuous, it's libelous, and we will act on it. And she will learn the hard way. She will learn the hard way that she is now, by sending that out, got herself into serious trouble. And he'll hang her out to dry. He's done it to many councillors before. You know, he doesn't care. He only cares about himself and his aim. He has to win. So anybody with all the facts cannot come to the conclusion other than Chegwin is an out and out liar, and he simply must be removed from office. This is the second part. There will be follow-ups as more things happen. Thank you for your time.